You just casually took a bite of a dry piece of sweet potato. Yet you scared the mighty alchemy master so much he immediately addressed you as senior with great respect. He even offered you 10,000 supreme spirit stones as a reward, all because you transmigrated to the world of cultivation as an ordinary linglong. But you accidentally activated the temporal ground horn. Anything you toss inside it, set with the right fermentation conditions and time, can instantly undergo time fermentation, making ordinary objects go through a qualitative transformation and become a heaven-defying divine item containing the essence of the Tao. So without hesitation, you grabbed a handful of sweet potato and tossed them into the light screen environment. Chose the spiritual eye dry well, cool, ventilated, with spiritual energy. As for the time, just let it sit longer to soften it thoroughly. Let's set it for 1,000 years. You operated skillfully. In an instant, 1,000 years went by in the system. You took them out yawning. Ripples spread across the light screen. An indescribably overwhelming aroma, like a volcano suppressed for eons, suddenly exploded in your courtyard. Not only did the dead grass instantly sprout and turn green, even the sleepy, lame hen dozing in the backyard suddenly had a savage light as wild as an ancient beast flash from her eyes. Once the light faded, the once rock-hard dried sweet potato was now quietly floating in midair. It was crystal clear, like a top-grade piece of golden amber. Spiritual liquid swirled inside, and the surface was actually covered with fine red dates.
It was frosted with sugar.
And looked fantastic. Now it's soft. Your eyes immediately lit up, and you casually picked up one and put it in your mouth. You took a bite. The texture was a burst of soft, chewy, and sweet crispness. Suddenly, a wave of incredibly rich spiritual aroma, comparable to celestial nectar, turned into a golden pillar of energy, shooting straight into the sky from your mouth. At the same time, 30 miles away in the heart of Yangshao sect, an alchemy master at death's door, his spiritual veins fully withered master Den Yangzi, looked utterly desolate and was preparing to paint his last work. In that critical moment, the sound of you chewing sweet potato mingled with that fearsome aroma and crashed fiercely into his protective aura. Even though just a whiff of the aroma sneaked inside, Dan Yangzi's dry sea of spiritual energy instantly let out a desperate roar as spiritual energy swept through. His bent back straightened inch by inch. The old man's eyes snapped open suddenly, his gaze crazed, brighter than the sun. The very source of celestial medicine. How could there be in this barren land an ultimate celestial item reversing yin and yang, containing the logic of creation and life? The next second, he went completely mad. With a thunderous crash,
He smashed through the roof.
turned into a streak of light, and sped toward Nanting village, hoarsely crying out about the birth of celestial medicine. I might just have a chance to prolong my life. Moments later, Danyangzi arrived, riding a terrifying windstorm capable of overturning ancient tombs, and landed. This enormous pressure forced all mortals nearby flat against the ground. Strangely enough, your little yard was calm as ever. Any darkness that approached simply dissipated. Danyangzi, eyes red with mania, stared intensely at the half-lit sweet potato in your hand. He gasped. It contained the ancient power of the earth's ley lines inside, and was coated in primal unity sugar crust outside. His imagination went wild, filling in the blanks, his heartbeat pounding like a drum. Oddly enough, you just frowned, picked up a chipped tea bowl, and as casually as possible dipped this celestial wonder, the very thing that could spark a war in the heavens, into some murky cold tea. Danyangzi let out a wail, painful as having his whole life's work destroyed. Senior, please have mercy. Danyangzi, desperate, crashed to his knees at your gate with a thud. He left 2 long trenches in the muddy ground. Senior, I failed to recognize your greatness. You were just chewing your softened sweet potato. Now completely startled, you instinctively pulled your hand back. Old man, daytime scams won't work here. I can't even afford basic fasting pills. You must have the wrong person. But Dan Yangzi kept kowtowing madly, face full of flattery. Senior, my time is almost up. I only beg for the half of that celestial treat between your fingers. Would you spare it for me? You were stunned, thinking this guy was definitely out of his mind. You want this? You waved the sweet potato. I mean, if you really want it, I guess. But let's get something straight first. This thing has been sitting around for quite a while. Don't blame me if it upsets your stomach. It's just been around a bit too long. But when Danyangzi heard these words, it was like a thunderclap from the heavens. So it truly is an ancient celestial delicacy that stood the test of time. Senior, thank you for your immense kindness. I dare not accept it for free. Danyangzi's hands shook with excitement as he suddenly raised a dragon-patterned storage ring. Inside are 10,000 supreme spirit stones, 3 celestial furnaces from beyond the heavens, and a fragment of a true dragon's remains. All in exchange for that half of the celestial item, 10,000 supreme spirit stones. The sweet potato almost got stuck in your throat. A single supreme stone could buy dozens of alchemists. Fine, consider it charity work. You suppressed your shock and kept your composure. After accepting the ring, you casually tossed the half-sweet potato to him like flicking away a cigarette, but Danyangzi caught that celestial item, so overwhelmed he nearly passed out. He scrambled to his feet and fled, afraid you might regret it. Luck like this. Time to splurge on a whole roast lamb tonight. You tossed the ring in your hand, mumbling as you prepared to head back inside, when a cold, clear woman's voice called from outside the fence. Wait. You stopped in your tracks. A stunning beauty fixed her eyes on you. Her name was Ling Qingsu, heiress of the #1 merchant house in Juzhou. She just happened to witness this outrageous transaction. Quite a scam, I'll give you that. Fooled even a peak golden core cultivator. Lin Qingsu sneered coldly, her tone lofty. I don't believe for a second that you are some hidden superior being. Honestly, she refused to give you any chance to explain, and with a flick of her wrist, produced an ancient treasure for seeking truth. The 7-aperture mind-reading mirror appeared. Show your true form for me. She activated the artifact, aiming it at you. Yet, unbelievably, as the legendary treasure famous for seeing through all things came into contact with you, the faintest mortal aura leaked out from you, and the mirror suddenly let out a terrified wail. Snap. As Ling Qingsu's eyes went wide in utter shock, this top-tier mirror, fire and waterproof for 100,000 years, didn't even touch a single strand of your hair, not even close. But was so terrified by your natural presence that right in her delicate palm, it exploded in a cloud of glowing powder. The crisp sound of the shattering mirror was especially piercing in the silence outside the little yard. Lin Qingsu stared dumbfounded at the sparkling powder, left in her palm, as if struck by a celestial thunderbolt. She was frozen, stiff as a board. That was the famous 7-aperture mind-reading mirror, the Juzhou Chamber's greatest treasure, something even a half-step nascent soul ancestor would admire. Everyone has to tread carefully around him. But this artifact has been passed down for 100,000 years. It's an invincible supreme treasure, immune to all elements, yet simply coming into contact with a trace of your regular energy that leaks out from you was like encountering the ultimate terror of the universe. It shattered instantly without even having time to cry out. What kind of terrifying existence is this? Ling Qingsu's usually aloof and proud face instantly lost all color. She turned as pale as paper. She didn't even dare to look you in the eyes. Her legs went weak uncontrollably. But in the face of this stunning beauty's breakdown, you just inexplicably curled your lip. Kids these days sure have a temper. She brings a busted glass mirror, smashes it herself for fun, and doesn't even mind getting cut? No sooner had you finished speaking, you couldn't even be bothered to glance at her again, turned around and walked into the yard, then slammed the creaky wooden door shut. Outside, Lin Qingsu felt like she'd been granted amnesty. Cold sweat drenched her long dress. She scrambled and crawled away, fleeing from this place that made her soul tremble. Not long after, you tossed the storage ring full of top-notch snacks casually onto the stone table. All you could think about was improving your meals now. You strolled into the backyard and locked your gaze with annoyance on that mangy, crippled Luhua chicken that eats more than anyone. It's been over half a year since it arrived, and it hasn't laid a single quail egg. Keeping you around for New Year's or what? You sighed with dislike. Whatever desperate times call for desperate measures. Even though you complained inside, you still focused your thoughts. To activate the passage of time function, the system notified you that live range breeding mode was unlocked. You brightened up at that, grabbed a protesting Lu Hua chicken, and stuffed it, bamboo coop and all, straight into the light screen. Set the environment to primeval mountain. Plenty of bugs and strong spiritual energy. As for time, you just locked it at 1,000 years. Made the decision casually, yawned, and went back indoors to sleep. Night fell. Lanting village sank into silence. At that moment, two sneaky figures crept to the edge of your little yard. Leading them was Zhang Xiaofei, who got a taste during the day. Trailing behind was the village ruffian, Wang Ergu. They had their eyes on your storage ring. Fij, can you really pull this off? Wang Ergu whispered nervously. Dude, he can't even afford basic cultivation pills. He sleeps like a dead pig. You go and grab the ring, and we'll split it 50-50. Zhang Xiaofei urged viciously. Wang Ergu steeled himself and climbed over the fence. Just as he was about to land, the system's mechanical voice sounded in your mind. 5,000 years of fermentation is complete. Leaf specimen will be auto-extracted. Suddenly, with no warning, a doomsday pressure spanning eternity erupted from the backyard, shooting skyward from behind your house. What the hell was that? Wang Ergu's pupils shrank. He let out a scream like he'd seen a ghost. Midair, a cluster of 5-colored divine light exploded open. The mangy chicken's body suddenly swelled to the size of a water buffalo. Its brilliant feathers shimmered with the laws of the Tao. A vague shadow of a primordial royal bird appeared above its head. 5-colored rays instantly turned night into day. All the monsters within 100 miles felt their origins suppressed and dropped to the ground, madly kowtowing. With a regal glance toward the bug on the top of the wall, it casually flapped its wing, and a gust like a 10,000-ton hydraulic press swept through. Wang Ergu was sent flying directly, ending up dangling from a huge old locust tree tens of meters outside the yard. He passed out cold. Outside the wall, Zhang Xiaofei also foamed at the mouth due to the overwhelming pressure. After showing off its power, the Lu Hua chicken withdrew its divine glow and returned to its dumb, goofy self. Sticking its butt out, it crawled back to the jewel-like chicken coop and fell asleep. The next morning, the air in the cultivation world is amazing. You stretched lazily, pushed open the yard door. To your surprise, Wang Ergu was hanging upside down from the tree, and Zhang Xiaofei lay beneath, foaming at the mouth. What? Practicing acrobatics outside my house in the middle of the night? You shook your head and didn't bother with these two brainless idiots. Turned to the backyard. Your eyes went wide in shock. There in the chicken coop, the Lu Hua chicken looked up, hoping to please you. And right beneath her were 2 chicken eggs the size of goose eggs. Golden Tao runes danced over the shells, with vague sounds of dragons and phoenixes. Nice. One vacation and you finally laid eggs. At last we got eggs. You tapped the shells, satisfied, just as you were about to make some scrambled eggs. Creak. The yard door was flung open. A group of wealthy cultivator ladies from the town rushed in with red eyes, staring hungrily at the eggs in your hands like wolves. Those contain soul origin repose immortal energy. Hey, those eggs are mine. Faced with the crazy rich women, you raised an eyebrow slightly. Line up if you want eggs. But if anyone so much as steps on my veggie patch, I'll smash the eggs before I give any out. The moment you said that, the whole room fell silent. Suddenly they all realized, anyone who can raise such a primeval beast can't be an ordinary person. Each began to tremble in fear. Please calm down, Senior. How much for those eggs? You sighed. Even selling a regular egg requires an auction now? But just as you finished, a cold and domineering voice rang out. Wait, those 2 immortal eggs are mine. I'll buy them both. Lin Qingsu descended again on her flying sword. She did her best to keep up a cool facade. But the instant she saw the eggs, she was still deeply shaken. With a thud, she dropped to one knee. Senior, I'm willing to offer 3 million top spirit stones, plus a 30% stake in our business guild, just to get an immortal egg to save my ancestor. The whole room gasped, but you impatiently dug at your ear. 3 million? I have 10,000 stones just propping up a table leg. I wouldn't bother to trade for that. Money's not a problem for me. Lin Qingsu was on the verge of tears. She begged humbly without any airs, glancing at the weedy yard. Her eyes lit up. Forget money. If you want it, Pull the weeds in my yard. Clean them out, and the egg is yours. Everyone was shocked. The highborn, aloof Lin Qingsu, pulling weeds. But Lin Qingsu feverishly convinced herself, Senior must be making me temper my Tao with farm work. I understand. She didn't hesitate, rolled up her sleeves, and squatted on the dirt, caring nothing for her image. Huffing and puffing as she weeded. She worked for a whole hour, her hands red and raw, before it was finally finished. Not bad. You tossed her an egg. Go save your elder. You took the other and headed for the kitchen. Quickly made scallion egg soup. The rich aroma instantly rushed out. A few mid-level cultivator ladies outside caught a whiff, and actually broke through their bottleneck on the spot. You walked out with a chipped porcelain bowl. After all that work, everyone must be thirsty. Have some soup before you go. Drink up, then head out. Lin Qingsu drank it with tears streaming down her face. He took a trembling sip. The broth surged like a blazing torrent down his throat. His stagnant nascent soul cultivation suddenly skyrocketed. Late nascent soul stage. Half step to soul transformation. A crisp cracking sound was heard. The bottleneck to soul transformation completely shattered. I've broken through to the soul transformation stage. All because I drank a spoonful of egg soup. He was left utterly shocked and numb. Then, to everyone's surprise, he suddenly lunged forward and clung tightly to your leg, his face filled with humility and fervor. Senior, this egg drop soup is just incredible. I don't want to go home anymore. By the way, do you need someone to clean the outhouse in your courtyard? As long as you feed me. I'll even pay 10 million spirit stones myself. A spirit stone hall member. A soul transformation level expert. The top prodigy of the Kyushu Chamber of Commerce. Lin Qingsu is now clutching your leg tightly, sobbing uncontrollably, insisting on staying to clean the outhouse. If word of this ever spread outside, probably every young genius in Kyushu would have their whole world view shattered. But you just shook her off in annoyance, like brushing off a sticky piece of taffy. What outhouse? This entire courtyard is barely big enough as is. Let go. You wiped your tears all over my pant leg. Not going back. Even if you beat me apart, I won't go. Lin Qingsu wouldn't let go no matter what. Now she finally understood. All those so-called blessed lands outside, compared to your divine little courtyard, aren't even as good as a firewood shed. Just pulling weeds or drinking leftover soup here brings instant upgrades. If she stayed a whole year, she might just ascend to immortality on the spot. All right. Just happens I need someone to chop firewood. You can have a 2-day trial period first. You sigh helplessly. I won't provide meals. Maybe just let you have a few bites of leftovers. Thank you for your generous kindness, Senior. Lin Qingsu was overjoyed, like she'd found a treasure, and happily ran off to the backyard. You handed her an axe to keep her busy, then sat back in your wicker chair. Your stomach growled. You'd been too focused on making the egg soup earlier, that you hadn't eaten breakfast yourself. So you wandered over to the cellar entrance and pulled out a clay jar and added some chopsticks, pickled veggies you bought from the market. Yuck, you spit them out after just 2 bites. Did they make these pickles just to sell salt? It's basically like gnawing on brined tree bark. As a food lover, you really couldn't stand this kind of meal. So you turned to the storage room and dug out a yellowed, tattered recipe book home-style pickling methods, passed down from the original owner's family, but anything made from it turned out bitter and astringent. You pinched the shabby booklet and grabbed a plastic mat at random, wrote with bold strokes on a blank spot. The pickles need to be firmly pressed. Add less salt. No rush, let time perfect it. An idea came to your mind. You summoned up the power of time. Set the cellar to be like a humble little temple 1,000 years ago. You tossed the old book in along with a head of Napa cabbage and 2 radishes. In an instant, time and space fermentation began. But what you couldn't possibly expect was that the random, worn old recipe you tossed in somehow caused a wild storm in the outside world. Meanwhile, Lin Qingsu, chopping wood, got a transmission. The chamber's grand elder broke down in tears. Young Miss Jubayoj paid to hire a 5th-tier stone cultivating grandmaster. We're about to go bankrupt. Lin Qingsu snorted coldly, glancing at your busy back, with awe in her eyes. Who cares if the chamber goes bankrupt? Just gotta hold tight to Senior's leg. I could turn the whole Kyushu upside down myself. A single move could destroy the world. But before she could even finish marveling, the myriad spirits' holy land, millions of miles away, was thrown into chaos. That was the last holy site of the stone cultivating lineage, where the current old temple master had sat in meditation for 1,000 years, his time nearly up, yet unable to find enlightenment. When suddenly, out of nowhere, the ancient, wordless scripture revered on the altar for a millennium erupted in a blinding golden light. When the light faded, a line of heaven and earth's principles slowly appeared on the book, written in concentrated ink. The old temple master shakily put on his reading glasses and read aloud, word for word. Pickles must be pressed tight. Less salt must be used. Boom! Thunder crashed in the temple master's mind. He was instantly struck with profound enlightenment. I've realized the great Tao is utter simplicity. Then he started screaming like a madman. Quick! Harness the purple gold flood dragon chariot. All sect disciples, march with me to Namping village to pay homage to the patriarch. While all was chaos at Myriad Spirit's holy land, you in Namping village nonchalantly pressed the extract button. Ding! Item extracted. As a faint spatial tremor accompanied, a half-human tall ancient vat inscribed with intricate arrays, crystal clear as fine jade, landed steadily on your stone table. The cellar even has an automatic packaging upgrade feature. You patted the stone vat and casually lifted the lid. In an instant, there was no strange noise, only a pure and flawless, ultimate tangy aroma, enough to cleanse the soul. Anyone who smelled it would feel all the karma of their past and present lives washed away. This is it! You couldn't wait another second. Picked up a piece of translucent emerald green cabbage, bit down with a satisfying crunch. Perfect with rice. You squatted on the steps, devouring rice porridge with relish. Just then, the wooden gate of the courtyard was violently kicked open. Wang Teng stormed in, bringing 5th grade stone chef Master Liu. Wang Teng pointed at Lin Qingsu, who was chopping wood, and burst into loud laughter. Miss Lin, you've actually fallen so low as to be a farm girl for a country bumpkin. He glanced at you, squatting and eating porridge, and laughed so hard he cried. And this broke farmer gets called senior? Lin Qingsu, are you so desperate you're clutching at straws? As for Master Liu, he just scoffed arrogantly, tapped on his storage bag, and revealed a bubbling spirit-filled 100-treasure emerald soup. The moment this soup comes out, everything else pales in comparison. Everything in your shabby courtyard doesn't compare to even a clear broth. But before he could finish boasting, you stood up with your porridge, slurping it down. Quit holding your pot upwind, you'll blow ash into my bowl. You waved annoyedly, with chopsticks still dripping with pickle juice, trying to fan away the smell. What you didn't expect was that the moment that drop of juice hit the air, an overwhelming aroma representing the highest culinary law suddenly awakened. The instant that tongue met the white jade stew pot, the fragrant emerald soup sizzled sharply, and in just a second turned into an inky black, murky liquid with an indescribably awful odor. Wang Teng, standing closest, was hit first. He was so overwhelmed he threw up last year's New Year's dinner. Impossible! Master Liu lunged like a madman. Then he caught a whiff in the air, that faint trace of pickle aroma. In just an instant, the foundation he'd cultivated for 100 years completely collapsed. The essence of all eternity, this primal aroma. Master Liu trembled all over, staring at you, at the half-piece of green pickle stem in your hand. With a thud, Master Liu dropped to his knees on the stone slabs, half in agony, half crawling toward you like a worm, bowing his head crazily in worship. You're one of the top 10 living ancestors. I'm begging you, just let me have a taste. It'd be worth it even if I died on the spot. You were disgusted by that greasy old man. You got goosebumps all over. Are you out of your mind? Is one bite of kimchi really worth all this? At this critical moment, the sky above Lanting village was suddenly torn apart. A clear sky instantly turned purple. A 9-headed, 10,000-foot-long true purple gold dragon pulled a massive chariot and burst out. On top of that chariot stood the old Daoist master who'd lived 1,200 years, raising that tattered earthbound tome high, roaring madly toward your little yard. Wanling Holy Land. We welcome the Supreme Patriarch's manifestation. Rumble. Suddenly, the sky over Lanting village seemed to be torn apart by two invisible giant hands. No one could have expected 10,000-foot-long bodies of ancient flood dragons covered in purple gold scales to pull a towering, divine gilded chariot and crash out of the shattered void turbulence. That terrifying aura unique to the tribulation stage instantly forced every creature within 50 miles to the ground, unable to move. Wanling Holy Land. That was the old master's exclusive ride. Inside the courtyard, Lin Qingsu suddenly looked up. Her stunningly beautiful face was filled with shock. The 1,200-year-old patriarch, Xi Xiu, had actually descended personally to Nanping village. Meanwhile, outside the courtyard door, Wang Teng, the young master of Treasure Pavilion, and that chef Liu were so scared they burst into tears and snot. Is the old ancestor here to save our Xi Xiu line? At this crucial, much-anticipated moment, the beaded curtain in the sky was suddenly lifted. The aged, childlike-faced Taoist master, holding that yellowed, tattered booklet, took a step and shattered the void. He instantly appeared above your little courtyard, standing with his hands behind his back. He was just about to gather his true energy and deliver a grand history-making opening speech. But unfortunately, just as his feet touched down, stepping into the absolute domain of your humble courtyard, at that very instant buzz, an almost indiscernible, but overwhelming universe-suppressing sour aroma drifted straight into his nose. Plop. The ancient book he treasured as a priceless relic fell straight into the mud. In the briefest instant, a split-second revelation. The patriarch, famed across Central State, had his eyes pop wide open, almost sucking all the air out of the surroundings. He stared fixedly at the chipped porcelain bowl in your hand, and the crystal-clear old pickling jar on the stone table. The sour aroma was extreme. This is absolutely impossible. The old master felt every bit of his spiritual sensitivity ignite. He could taste the passage of time from the sourness. Whether 100 years or 10,000, none could compare to this one bite that seemed to cut off the river of time and fermented the very essence of the Tao itself. So what the old man's been searching centuries for turns out to be nothing more than a humble side dish to your plain porridge. Boom! The 1,000-year Tao heart of the old master, as strong as a boulder, shattered into glass in an instant. Astonishingly, in the petrified gazes of the flood dragons overhead, this tribulation stage grandmaster suddenly fell to his knees, slamming into the flagstones. He looked for all the world like the lowless servant, using his momentum lavishly, and slid up to your feet. He moved so fast that he left 2 smoking trails on the ground. Senior, this junior, Qing Fengzi was truly blind not to recognize a banished immortal. What a grave mistake. The old master sobbed uncontrollably, banging his head repeatedly.
He even tried to stick out his tongue
And lick the sauerkraut soup dripping off the edge of the stone table. Holding the chipped porcelain bowl, you almost spat out the mouthful of porridge you just swallowed. If it isn't today, how come wave after wave of people keep coming to cry and mourn at my place? Old man, who the hell are you? Unexpectedly, Wang Ting, thinking he'd found hope, frantically began to complain. Patriarch, don't let him fool you. He's just a broke nobody. Lord Danong, quickly subdue him. Shut up, you ungrateful wretch. The words had barely left his mouth when the abjectly humble old master whipped his head around, his eyes blazing with tangible divine light. How dare you shout nonsense right in front of him?
He didn't even lift a finger.
Just let out a thunderous shout. Bang, bang. 2 dull thuds. The once arrogant Wang Teng and Chef Liu instantly turned into 2 flashes of red and scattered on the wind, utterly obliterated, disappearing completely. Right after that, the cold look on the old master's face seamlessly turned into a sycophantic, frenzied smile. Senior, those 2 flies dirtied your sight. By the way, may I ask, when you finish this jar of sauerkraut, would you let this old man wash the jar for you? A dignified 1,000-year-old monster, throwing away all self-respect. But as soon as he said this, a clear sword cry rang out. Lin Qingsu flashed out like a shadow, wielding a battered hatchet to block the old master, and roared, Qing Fengzi, old man. Washing jars and latrines is the job of us maidservants. You've lived most of your life, and you still dare compete for chores? Let's settle this now. Who? What do you know about proper cultivation practice? Even the old master lost his cool, his Taoist robes dramatically flying. In the blink of an eye, the top holy maiden of Juzhou and Central State's perennial demon lord were fighting in the mud over a dirty rag for washing dishes, completely losing all dignity in a pitched brawl, wrestling each other into a mad tangle. Holding your porridge, you sighed helplessly, not wanting to deal with these two maniacs. You turned to the ingredients for dinner. The small mountain-sized ironclad Vajra bore the old master delivered. Its pigskin was as tough as wrought iron, and had already warped two of your cleavers, leaving you stumped. Then, you noticed the rusty old hatchet propping up the table leg in the corner. With no other choice, you picked up the hatchet and casually tossed it into the system's time cellar. You quickly typed in the setting archaic sword ruins. Set storage duration to 30,000 years. Meanwhile, as you yawned and waited for the hatchet to ferment, in the shadows beyond the courtyard, the Golden Core assassins could wait no longer. Big brother, that guy's danshin is empty. He's just an ordinary mortal who picks something up. At the moment of action, the two top assassins crushed their stealth charms, merged into the void, and silently scaled the fence. While Ling Qingsu and the others were still fighting, the assassins locked precisely onto your back, from 3 feet to 1 foot away. Their daggers coated with potent poison were about to stab straight into your vital point. Right at this critical juncture, ding, nurturing complete. Retrieve for washing. The void split open, and you pulled out the rusty, broken hatchet you just put in. A look of utter disbelief passed through the assassin's eyes, as if you were using scrap metal to fight, thinking you must be terrified. But what they'd never expect was that you casually mutter, "Feels a bit light." Then, gripping the wooden handle, you aimed at the sword on the chopping block, and couldn't even cut through the ironclad boar meat with sword key. Totally casual, you brought the blade down on the armored boar meat with a nonchalant chop. Within 1% of a second as the rusty blade fell, time completely froze. The rusty blade was covered with 30,000 years of corrosion. Only 10,000 flakes off. That wasn't rust at all. It was pure, primordial annihilation to the extreme. Sword intent crackled. A dazzling gray sword line appeared out of nowhere, tearing apart the indestructible armor.
Pork.
Was instantly sliced into hundreds of meat slices thin as cicada wings, smooth as a mirror. And this was just the lingering residue of the sword aura. The remaining 99% of terrifying sword intent followed the upward arc of your swing, directly sliced behind your back. Absolutely silent, from head to toe. The moment two top-tier Jindan assassins touched the sword line, their ambitious souls, with a hiss, were directly broken down into quark-level virtual particles, completely evaporated from the mortal world. Not only that, this sword glow that hadn't used even 1/10,000,000 of its energy, shot straight past the eaves towards the heavens, slashed 100 miles away, through the main ridge of the central continent's sacred mountain, like a natural barrier, as if cut by a sharp blade on a clear day. Boom! 3 seconds later, the roar finally echoed back to Nanping village. You jumped in surprise, rubbing your ears. Looking to the south break, there was strong convection. How is there a thunderstorm in broad daylight? Needless to say, you weren't paying attention at all. The two old monsters fighting behind you were already kneeling in the mud, their jaws dislocated, eyes bulging out, because at the end of their trembling, collapsing gaze, that majestic sacred mountain standing for billions of years was, at this moment, because of your casual shake, split right through the middle, a bottomless ultimate Grand Canyon. At the same time, in the celestial sword sect of the central continent, by that gray sword aura casually slashed from the far west, that gray sword aura actually forced a split through the rear mountain of the sect. The absolutely unshakable main ridge directly split a Grand Canyon, smooth as a mirror. In the blink of an eye, dong dong dong, inside the sect there hung the 9 heavens divine bell, untouched for 100,000 years. Suddenly roared, who was it? Dare to challenge me? Heavenly Sword Divine Sect. A heart-wrenching roar erupted from the abyss. Then a blinding white light shot into the sky. Zhu Wushen, the top sword master of Juzhou who's lived 8,000 years, broke through the barrier. He stood on immortal mist. 100,000 flying swords blocked out the sun behind him. Who's the coward hiding here? Even if you're an ancient powerhouse, dare to show off in front of me. Today I will suppress you for sure. Furious beyond reason, Wushen turned into a rainbow, bringing along 100,000 flying swords. He charged straight toward Nanping village, to everyone's surprise. Meanwhile, inside the courtyard of Nanping village, just a moment ago they were wrestling in the mud. Now old Daoist Qingfeng and Lin Qingsu's knees went weak. With a thud, they both knelt in a row. Like rusty machines. They turned their heads, eyes glued to the rusty cleaver in your hand. Others can't see clearly, but they're close enough. That's a destructive sword intent. That erased a top assassin's existence from the very cause and effect level. And you actually just used it casually to cut a piece of pork. Is this what ancient gods do for fun in the mortal world? The old Daoist's scalp tingled. Cold sweat poured down. If he hadn't knelt so fast just now, he wouldn't even have ashes left. In the nick of time, boom! The sky above Nanping village turned pitch black. A piercing aura swept over the land. Zhu Wushen descended with the immortal execution sword formation. Worms, come out. Face punishment, he stood proudly in the clouds. His eyes instantly locked onto you, standing at the cutting board. There's no trace of spiritual energy on you. But he scoffed coldly, getting ready to summon the 100,000 swords. To level everything within 100 miles, people and land alike. But just as he raised his finger, inside the courtyard you just finished slicing the pork. Clapped your hands in satisfaction. The pork's ready. Perfect. Time to make some sauerkraut pork stew. But seems like there's not enough firewood. As soon as you finished speaking, you casually grabbed that just unleashed 30,000-year-old rusty cleaver and strolled over to the woodpile in the backyard. And in that very instant, as you swung the cleaver, in the sky above, the immortal sword under Wushen's feet, which had slain immortals, suddenly let out a cry of utter terror. With a crack, it snapped itself in two. Even in defeat,
He dared not.
point the sword tip at the cleaver in your hand. At the same time, the 100,000 flying swords in the sky felt the oppression of a true ancient taboo after 30,000 years. All bent 90 degrees, like bowing in terror. Then, with a loud clatter, they fell like dumplings being boiled. All crashed to the ground. Who would have thought? Zhu Wushen froze midair, stuck in his casting pose, his expression completely petrified. He stared hard at the cleaver you were about to use for chopping firewood. Boom. It felt like 10,000 stars exploded in his mind. How could that be just a cleaver? That's a prehistoric weapon buried with ancient masters. Even more unnerving, he realized, you were wielding this artifact that could split open the immortal realms, just to chop a piece of worthless wood. If not for supreme swordsmanship, how could you use it for firewood? This cause and effect could split Juzhou apart. In that instant, all his pride turned into the deepest fear. Thud. The mighty #1 sword master dropped straight down from midair like a scallion and slammed hard into the mud at your feet. Crawling, he threw himself at your feet and clung tightly to the cleaver, wailing loudly, "Senior, you mustn't. You are of distinguished status. How can you do such menial work? As for chopping firewood, please let me do it no matter what. I'm most suited to serve you as your wood-chopping lackey. You're honestly a bit numb now." Eyeing the sword master sobbing at your legs, and the side-scuffling Lin Qingsu, an old woman fighting over the rag, you sighed deeply. Are all cultivators in this world crazy or what? Since they insist on working for free, you don't refuse. Fine, fine, fine. Just don't injure your hand. Chop all you want. You casually tossed the primordial cleaver to Zhu Wushen. Thank you for your favor, senior. Zhu Wushen trembled with excitement like he'd won a treasure.
He shook uncontrollably with joy.
He turned to face a pine log and started using the sword sect's topmost secret technique, just to make sure every stick was neatly and evenly chopped. In no time, your little courtyard became a scene of utter competitive madness. First, Sengse's Lin Qingsu wore an apron and energetically washed your old clothes by the well. Second, the 1,200-year-old old jar master stuck out his butt and carefully tended the fire for the pork stew. Last, the invincible sword master went shirtless, chopping wood like a madman. Old man, you can't control the fire. Are you planning to burn a hole through the pot? Ju Wushen roared. What do you know, you wood chopper? The old Daoist poked his sooty face out, clueless. Shut up, both of you. Lin Qingsu unleashed her full aura. Senior is taking a nap. Anyone who wakes him will join me as I drag him to clean the outhouse. That afternoon, you lounged on the rattan chair watching your free laborers, secretly delighted inside. But once night fell, the demon beasts of the 100,000 surrounding mountains started howling crazily like they'd been provoked. All night long. Why are these beasts screaming in the middle of the night? Annoyed by the noise, you sat up. Since you can't pull their teeth out now, guess you'll give them some mental nourishment instead. You randomly grabbed a tattered book from under your bed's leg, pulled out a breath of youth technique. You could buy 3 of these for 5 copper coins at a mortal marketplace. Then you swapped in the Foot of Time artifact and tossed the ragged booklet inside. Since you wanted all the beasts to calm down and make it last long enough, might as well set it to the very beginnings of everything. While thinking, you scribbled a few words. Timeline, the primordial era, set to the primordial age. The era of primordials? Even Ju Wushen couldn't imagine those ancient times. You didn't realize it all. By throwing a random made-up breathing practice from modern times into the dawn of the world itself, it would not only change history, it could even flatten the whole universe. Ding! Cross-epoch causality detected. The lines of time and fate are reorganizing. As the old book vanished, suddenly, boom! No matter what others thought, even the true immortals above the heavens erupted in this split second. As a terrifying shockwave struck, withered weeds in the yard broke through the dirt, blooming into 12-petal golden lotuses, filling the yard with primal earth magic. Even the sleeping hen turned into a 10,000-foot true monarch, a phantom bowing in worship. Even stranger, the undying heavenly Tao will high above let out a terrified wail. Since that's the case, even the supreme immortal emperors who'd been in seclusion for millions of years all opened their eyes filled with despair, frightened to discover that their immortal foundations of countless eons had been shaken by a tattered breath of tranquility technique, forcibly overwritten and replaced. The aura of an immortal emperor who's lived for half an era is feeble. He lets out a wild roar toward the heavens from the lower realm. Just who is this forbidden existence that crossed the river of time and reshaped the very foundation of the heavenly Tao at the origin of creation? Ding! Fermentation in space-time has ended. The item has been retrieved. Suddenly, accompanied by a crisp system notification in your mind. In this ordinary country farmhouse of yours, a force erupts strong enough to halt the universe. Even more astonishing, the ultimate power of universal unity descends with a roar. Instantly, golden lotuses bloom throughout the courtyard. Extremely rich primordial chaos completely envelops the entire space. Yet, from your perspective, the item that falls back onto the stone table from the system screen is exactly the book you sent to ferment back in the era of origin. The green breathing record, 3 copies for 5 coins. But unexpectedly, right now it's radiating a glow of purple and gold all over. The material seems ensed from the very first strand of primordial energy. Just flipping a page could trigger a cosmic Big Bang. Unparalleled manifestations of 3,000 divine demons being born. On the cover, there are still twisting 6 great Tao glyphs that don't even belong to this era. Supreme Genesis Tao scripture. It actually came with a cool new packaging system. This beauty service is really on point. You just finished your afternoon nap? Yawning as you walk over. You pick it up without any guard. Flip through it. What are all these bizarre doodles? With a slight frown, this book has over-fermented. The characters on it have all become twisted ancient pictographs resembling tadpoles. Not even a single punctuation mark. What's going on? The handwriting is even messier than a medicine prescription. I wouldn't even look at it if I tossed it to a dog. How am I supposed to cool down those crazy beasts physically now? You curl your lip in extreme disgust. Since that's the case, you smack This book capable of sparking monumental changes in the immortal realm. Supreme divine scripture. Casually toss it onto the wooden table. And then, with lifelong devotion, you notice the wooden table, weathered by sun and wind. Not only does the left leg come up short, it's also shaky. Your gaze naturally falls on that Tao scripture. The thickness is just right. Without any hesitation, you directly grab the chaos-imbued divine book.
Kacha.
And roughly shove it under the wobbly leg. Bang bang. You pat the table forcefully. Satisfied, you nod? Yeah, knowledge is power. Much steadier now. Used it to prop up the table. It really holds weight well. After finishing all this, you turn around, humming a tune, heading to the thatched hut for some tea leaves. But you absolutely couldn't expect. At the exact moment you turned away, in the corner of the courtyard, the three powerful workers who were busy a second ago are now frozen in place like they've been petrified, collectively stiff. 3 sharp intakes of cold air resound. Absolute God tightly grips his firewood knife. His eyeballs bulge. Did I just see what I think I saw? That's the very origin that remolds the foundation of the heavenly Tao. Senior actually used it to prop up a table leg. What a waste of a treasure. Putting the dignity of this world down on the ground? How horrifying must that frame of mind be? The old temple master is so scared his spatula falls into the fire pit, crying his eyes out, knocking his head like crazy. A single strand of primordial chaos could suppress the luck of central state. This world has gone completely mad. Lin Kingsu's delicate body trembles violently. This is the realm of the senior immortal. Using the Genesis scripture as a table prop, being able to wash clothes for the senior, that's truly a blessing earned through 8 generations. As these 3 frantically fill in their imagination, suddenly, boom, atop the 9 provinces sky, a deafening explosion of 100,000 stars occurs. Endless purple energy and black gold lightning tear through the sky. An absolutely unprecedented immortal aura comes crashing down like a waterfall. In an instant, all the ancestors of Central State bow their heads together. An immortal has descended to the mortal realm. At the same time, the space directly above the small courtyard shatters. A figure 10,000 feet tall, wreathed in dazzling immortal thunder, gradually solidifies. This is Zhuanming, immortal emperor who spent 10,000 years of cultivation, descending with a mechanized avatar.
He smelled primordial chaos from the origin era.
He is even willing to go all out to snatch it. Mortal ants. Hand over the source of the Tao. This immortal will leave you a bird. In an instant, the immortal's wild laughter abruptly stops. His voice turns into a raspy duck, because he sees clearly that supreme origin is actually tightly pressed under a crippled dining table. Even more bizarre, not a single person in the courtyard is trembling. There's only the shirtless old man with a rusty firewood knife, the white fox old man clutching a greasy rag, and the stunning lady holding a green onion. These 3 all look up together, with gazes as if looking at dust. He stared at the immortal's arrogance. At the moment he sensed the ancient sword intent and essence at their peak. He was completely paralyzed. Absolute silence. Total stillness. This is the lower realm? It's just a mortal village. The immortal's avatar screamed madly inside. On that cleaver, a trace of sword intent could cut it into 80,000 pieces. He thought the immortal had come to the wrong set by mistake. He even felt like falling to his knees right on the spot. But the working crew would never give him a chance. How dare you disturb the senior's nap? How dare you try to steal the brick the senior used to prop the table? Zhu Wushen's expression was gloomy as water. This is pure sabotage, nothing less. They fought tooth and nail for these jobs, washing dishes and chopping wood. How can some wild immortal ruin it all? Try to ruin my job. I'll chop you to pieces. In an instant, the number 1 sword sovereign in the 9 provinces ignited. 8,000 years of hard work. He swung the rusty cleaver boom. A pitch black sloshed through the sky, carrying 30,000 years of ancient destructive sword intent. It shot up from the earth. The one principal shallot whirlwind. Qingsu and Jiaohe, the essence-maxed filthy rag. The old DOS master went crazy on the set. Faced with this group desperate to keep their jobs, these masters went completely insane. The immortal's avatar didn't even have time to speak. His defense was shredded like paper. In despair, his ferocity erupted. It was do or die. Just as he finished speaking,
He detonated his immortal core immediately.
he spat out a blinding core, bright as the sun. A deadly immortal thunder golden core capable of vaporizing everything for 100 miles. He hurled it fiercely at little Yu. It's over if that core lands. Even if it just shakes a leaf off a dish. Zhu Shen and the others would be racked with guilt. At that critical moment, the core was less than 30 feet from the ground. Suddenly there was commotion from the chicken coop.
Cluck cluck.
Your long-lived fat Lu Hua chicken that feasts on god-level leftovers daily poked its cross-eyed head out.
Cluck.
Where did this glowing bug come from? So annoying. While the immortal's avatar was in disbelief, this Lu Hua chicken nonchalantly opened its beak, jutted its head forward. Snap! That world-destroying core was pecked up like a grain of rice. Gulp, its neck stretched back, and the nuke-like core slid smoothly down the chicken's throat. Then it rolled its eyes in disgust, burped, releasing a foul immortal-scented belch. A puff of black sparks spilled out. It tucked its head back into the grass nest to sleep. Even the thunderclouds evaporated and disappeared. The entire place was struck silent with horror. My precious destruction golden core was eaten by a chicken. The immortal's avatar was nothing but a head left. His Dao heart turned to ash on the spot. Immortals can't compare to emotions. Magical weapons are no match for a cleaver. A trump card became a barnyard snack. Just before he was utterly obliterated, he squeezed out his soul's last strength and desperately transmitted a message to the immortal realm. Immortal realm, Judy, listen up. Evacuate from the lower world immediately. There's a terrifying taboo in Nanping village. Never ever descend to the mortal realm. After the shock and awe, not even a trace was left. Of all times, right then, the kitchen's wooden door creaked open. You, wearing a gray apron, holding an oily spatula, called out for workers like nothing had happened. Wash up quickly. It's lunchtime. Something good happened today. The table finally sits level. Hey Lao He, go catch a chicken from the backyard for me to handle. We'll have something filling for lunch. Braised fatty chicken chunks. Unexpectedly, right as you finish speaking, from the distant chicken coop. That invincible Lu Hua chicken that even ignored the former emperor had all its feathers explode like steel needles, kicked up its legs, rolled its eyes, and collapsed, fainted straight in the grass heap. Cluck, then the chicken passed out. You looked at the Lu Hua chicken, flat on its back in the hay, laying stiff and playing possum, holding your cleaver, totally puzzled. What's up with this chicken? I haven't even started yet, and it just passed out by itself. Could it be heat stroke? But unexpectedly, the three long-term workers behind Juju Wushen, the old Taoist master Lin Qingsu, were dripping with cold sweat, like they'd just been dragged from the river, staring intently at the unconscious chicken, their eyes full of terror, as if it wasn't a chicken, but an ancestor who'd just swallowed a thunderbolt. Since the chicken's sick, we shouldn't eat it. You casually directed. That chicken probably has avian flu. If you eat it, you'll lose your hair. So for lunch, we'll just have sauerkraut with cold rice. Hurry and tidy up the yard. So, the three that could shake the world outside with a stomp knelt desperately in relief, bowing frantically, and scrambled to clean the stone table. That afternoon, you dragged a rattan chair under the osmanthus tree to relax. The autumn wind blew. Leaves swirled all over the yard. Your mild OCD was seriously triggered by the mess. You got up and rummaged behind the main door for a while, and pulled out an old, bald broom. Its patchy straw scratched weakly over the stone tiles, crackling noisily. It couldn't even move a single leaf. This thing sheds worse than old Wang at the village entrance. Totally useless. You sighed helplessly. Struck by an idea, you summoned your time fermentation field. Since it can ferment anything, why not let the broom soak up some spiritual energy? Maybe then it'll grow some new bristles. At that thought, you tossed the bald broom into the light curtain without hesitation. Set the timer to ancient divine wood environment. Storage time, 10,000 years. The goal was simple. Just don't let it snap after 2 sweeps. Meanwhile, in the skies outside the 33 heavens, true immortal realm. Bang! A shock loud enough to smash the galaxy exploded in the Lingxiao Palace. The disappearance of Xuanming Immortal Emperor rocked the heavens. The entire immortal world was in an uproar. Seated high on the emperor's throne, the Wuji Emperor, looked so grim he was about to drip water. There's a taboo down in the lower world. What a joke. Send the 4 domain guardians with 100,000 heavenly soldiers. Bring the world annihilation grand formation. This emperor will erase Nanping village and any so-called taboos. Wipe them completely from this timeline. In an instant, central divine continent of the human world was plunged into utter despair. The sky over Blue Screen Village shattered like a mirror. A 1,000,000-mile-wide black hole cut across the sky. An endless army of silver-armored heavenly soldiers. Arrayed in that ocean of thunder. 4 titanic golden-armored guardians looked down with crushing might, pinning Zhu Wushen and the other 2 into the mud. Their bones crackling. The god's general yelled, "The celestial army is here." Zhu Wushen tipped his head, stared hopelessly at the sky, heart completely destroyed. No matter how strong you are, against 100,000 celestial immortals that can erase a world, there's no way to win. The lead general raised his giant axe, grinned wickedly, "Bow before us." At the crucial moment, your fermentation finished, item retrieved. You were sitting under the osmanthus tree, and reached your hand into the light curtain, pulled out the broom, fermented for 10,000 years.
Now,
The bristles glowed with a bluish-gray divine light. The handle is entirely covered with 9-colored mysterious patterns, heavy and solid. Of course, in your eyes, it's just a new broom that's finally grown all its bristles. Just at that moment, a violent gust of wind mixed with thunder crashed down from the sky. Several roof tiles were blown off. What's with this damn wind? It's still not stopping. Dirt is flying all over the yard. You grumble in dissatisfaction. Extremely annoyed, you grab this sky-sweeping duster, aiming lazily at the swirling dust and the dead leaves at the gate. You gently wave it, as if shooing away flies. The instant you swing the broom down, a scene that would shatter anyone's soul unfolds. There was no earth-shattering boom. It was just an ordinary gentle breeze, trailing from the tip of your broom. It slowly floats up toward the sky. Unexpectedly, this breeze, when it meets the immortals and that world-ending divine light capable of crushing the universe, the overwhelming pressure that could sweep through all worlds, actually dissolves just like pencil marks erased by a rubber eraser, being forcibly blown into fragments inch by inch. That's impossible. The 4 heavenly generals in the sky are all bug-eyed in shock. This isn't wind. This is practically a law capable of completely formatting an entire dimension. Sweep before they could even shout to retreat. The gust from your broom had already swept across 1,000,000 miles. Suddenly, the wind speeds up violently. 100,000 heavenly soldiers and generals. The 4 golden immortals' extermination formation. From your point of view, they're no different from those annoying dust particles on the ground. It's like when you're sweeping. You don't care how much dust is in that pile of trash. Just like tossing out the garbage. 100,000 immortals together with the 4 divine generals, while exclaiming in terror, are swept into a ball by the gray wind. With a bang, get pierced straight into the darkest abyss beyond the universe, never to rise again for all eternity. Immediately after, because the wind is so fierce, that massive rift in the sky's boundary is instantly sealed up again as if pasted over with glue. It heals in an instant. One moment it was about to rock the world. The next, it's clear and sunny for 10,000 miles. The sun makes people feel lazy. You lean the broom against the corner of the wall, pat the dirt from your hands. After fermenting, this broom's bristles really do work well. Even the dust in the cracks gets swept clean. With that, you leisurely clasp your hands behind your back and head inside to make some tea. At this moment, the 3 old monsters in the yard are completely losing their minds. They kneel in the mud, tears streaming down like a broken faucet. Those were 100,000 heavenly soldiers. Yet in this senior's eyes, they're merely the pesky dust that made him frown. Zhu Wushen clutches a fistful of mud, shaking uncontrollably all over. He didn't even bother to look up at the sky. He was only focused on sweeping the ground. Lin Qingsu is nearly suffocating. Meanwhile, in the Lingxiao Palace of the Immortal Realm, crack, bang, all 100,004 soul memorial tablets on the offering platform, within 3 breaths, shatter into powder all at once. The almighty Wujie Emperor, who was still shouting a moment ago, now collapses on the floor like a pile of mud, staring blankly at the heavens. Fallen to the ground. In a split second, even the realm's boundary got stitched back up. The Emperor's lips tremble. He finally understands the meaning of unspeakable terror. That wasn't just some old hermit from the lower world. But holy crap, it's actually a supreme Dao Lord who can kick the universe around like a ball. Experiencing mortal life right now. Bring me paper and ink. The Emperor lets out a miserable howl, bites his finger, writes several confessions in the scriptures, then immediately strips off his imperial robes, puts on a ragged burlap shirt meant for a fire-tending servant, and full of regret calls for an edict to seal off the immortal Dao. I'm done being emperor. I'm heading down to the lower world right now, to kneel at the gates of Nanping village, just hoping that the next time Senior dumps his foot washing water, he'll drown me along with it. So the immortal realm still has a way to survive. That afternoon, a hint of lazy heat lingers in Nanping village. You move your rattan chair under the wild plum tree by the courtyard wall, soaking your feet in a basin of water with pleasure, and casually pick a wild plum from the branch. Pop it in your mouth. Surprisingly, the moment you bite down with a crunch, your whole face instantly wrinkles up like a dried chrysanthemum. That intense sourness makes your teeth ache and shiver. You spit out the rest of the plum in disgust. Because the soil here is so calm, the tree never really got the proper nutrients. You glance down at the basin of foot water at your feet, thinking that instead of dumping it out, might as well use the system to process it, to ferment it into natural nitrogen fertilizer.
Next.
You decisively pick up the basin filled with water imbued with your own aura. The foot-washing water was stuffed straight into the cellar of time. If it's allowed to ferment a bit longer, the nutrients will surely be even richer. As long as it doesn't get muddy, that's fine. Let's just store it for, say, 1,000 years. Ding! Time-space scheduling succeeded. The causal lines of history are twisting. A process of ultimate sublimation is underway. Meanwhile, out in the void 10 miles outside Lamping village, ripples began to spread. No one could have ever imagined. The one stepping out was actually the Celestial Supreme who had just relinquished his immortal seal and come down to the lower realm to beg forgiveness. It was the Wuji Celestial Emperor. He was once lofty and above all, but now his face was filled with terror. Clutched tightly in his arms was a treasure box containing the ultimate celestial fruit, the 10,000 year Xianpan peach. No matter what, as long as that unspeakable forbidden entity is willing to accept this celestial fruit, even if it means having to haul water in this village,
He'd accept it.
a short while later, your process here was complete. Ding! 1,000 years of nurture are finished. The item has been retrieved. You casually pulled out the wooden basin. The strange thing was, the originally murky foot-washing water had turned into a dazzling stream of starlight. It radiated the energy of nurturing 3,000 worlds, and its viscous essence exuded an ultimate, otherworldly fragrance. At that very moment, the 3 top workers in the yard smelled that aroma, and instantly their knees buckled as one. With a thud, they all knelt to the ground. Zhu Wushen's excited face was flushed red. My god, this is creation fluid from the beginning of the universe. I've been stuck at my swordsmanship for 8,000 years, but just smelling this once. Yet you didn't even bat an eye. Nonchalantly picked up the basin of divine water and casually dumped it all at the roots of the plum tree. In that instant, rumbles and booms echoed out. Not just the central land, but even 3,000 minor worlds. All let out a terrifying boom at that very second. Right after, the wild fruit tree rapidly expanded and shot up, transforming into a great Dao tree shrouded in primordial chaos mist. The formerly jaw-shatteringly sour wild plums, in the blink of an eye, all mutated into ninefold chaos Dao fruits. Plop! One Dao fruit was so heavy that when it fell into the mud, it was covered in dirt. Even stranger, the Ruhua chicken wandered over, took a couple of pecks at it, and found it too sweet, so it turned around and wandered off. Right at that moment, the Wuji Celestial Emperor happened to push open the courtyard gate. He immediately saw this divine tree blotting out the sun, and even witnessed the livestock treating a supreme Dao fruit like a snack. Sure enough, with a plop, the Xianpan peach he was about to present fell to the ground. Compared to this, his ultimate heavenly treasure, looked just like a rotten tangerine hairpin. In an instant, the Tao heart of the Wuji celestial emperor shook to its core, and he fell heavily to the stone slabs, begging fervently to the plum tree, crying out to the old tree grandfather, "Do you need anyone to wipe your leaves, sir? Who's causing all that noisy shouting out there?" You were about to tidy up the yard, when suddenly you were startled. You turned and saw an old man lying under the fruit tree yelling loudly.
Hey, old man.
"Who are you? Are you at the wrong house?" The Wuji celestial emperor shivered violently, and was just about to keep begging for mercy, when, unexpectedly, 3 hostile glances from inside the yard were stabbing right into his back, though these 3 were suppressed by his aura, at the risk that their own livelihood might be snatched. Zhu Wushan already had a firm grip on the firewood chopper. So it turns out it's the former Emperor Wuji. He's gotta be jealous of our good fortune as workers. Here to take our jobs. We can't let him stay. The sharp-witted Wuji celestial emperor immediately reacted. It's clear that only by letting go of all dignity here and becoming a lower-class laborer can you survive in this place. So, shamelessly, he grabbed your broomstick and earnestly called out, "Master, I'm just an old man fleeing hardship, and I desperately need a job sweeping the courtyard." But you could never have guessed. You actually shook your head and turned him down, because I already have 3 permanent idiots who work here for free and won't leave no matter what. So our roster is full. No new hires allowed. When he heard you didn't want him, the Wuji celestial emperor instantly panicked.
If not,
He'd definitely fall to ruin. His eyes lit up, and he stared intently at the huge golden millstone in the corner. He'd be a beast of burden rather than get kicked out. Even if I have to be an ox or a horse, I'll never let myself be driven from this courtyard. Master, I was born with superhuman strength. I can grind for you. I'm nothing but a humanoid old ox. As soon as he finished, this master of the celestial realm could no longer hide his strength. The true key of the 9-fold violet dragon within him erupted, and he actually manifested 2 phantom dragon claws, crawling frantically to an old wooden yoke used for cattle from 10 years ago, strapped it onto his own neck, and with his old dragon face, made it clear he would grind for the master for eternity, and produce soy milk. After saying all that, he started crawling on all 4s, desperately pulling the millstone, while greedily absorbing the fortune energy of fermented soy milk, one way or another. This scene left Zhu Weijin and the others completely numb. As for you, you had an amused grin. Because in this cultivation world, the vagrants fight even harder for food than the production team's donkey. Alright then, once the tofu is ready, you can have a piece. In the blink of an eye, it was midnight. You'd already gone to bed. While in the yard, only the 3 big shots fighting over tofu remained. Lin Qingsu picked up the last piece of pan-fried tofu made from the purest soybeans, glanced at the Wuji celestial emperor who'd been grinding the whole 5 hours, and tossed it over like a stone without a care. Guess the grinder gets the leftovers. Unexpectedly, the Wuji celestial emperor leapt up and caught it in one bite. And at that very moment, as the ordinary tofu entered his stomach, a burst of 9-colored immortal light shot from his body. The barrier that had blocked his Tao ancestry for 100,000 years shattered like paper. At last, this once invincible celestial emperor sprawled on the ground, grease smeared all over his mouth, laughing maniacally through tears into the night sky. So delicious, just unbelievably delicious. In short, to hell with the celestial islands. I'd rather spend eternity as a male donkey for a master here. The very first rays of morning sun pierced the mist of Nanping village, and the rustling chaos woke you up. Rubbing your tired eyes, you pushed open the broken thatched door, feeling utterly down and out. You originally came here to enjoy a few days of peace, but instead, Zhu Wushan was out there crazily chopping firewood, the knife howling through the air. Lin Qingsu was bent over wiping the table with a rag, making a sound like nails on a chalkboard. Most ridiculous of all, the Wuji celestial emperor, the fabulous new hire, was pulling the millstone with a yoke, panting like an old ox. These crazy old cultivators are way too dedicated to their labor. You scratched your messy hair in annoyance, staring at the leaky roof and the half-rotten bamboo pen, chuckling in your mind. This house really could use a renovation. But finding a roofer is expensive and a hassle. What to do? Suddenly you had a flash of inspiration. If even foot washing water and a broken broom can ferment, what if I drew a blueprint for a remodel and threw it in the cellar of time? Let it ferment for 30,000 years. Wouldn't I be able to take out a luxury courtyard straight out of the box? Just thinking about it makes you admire your own intelligence to death. You immediately go back inside, grab a peeled Zhuan paper and a worn-out brush. On that wooden table with the Genesis Tao scripture underneath, you doodle casually. The thatched house turns into a brick and tile house. Draw the roof bigger. Make the walls thicker. You draw extremely carelessly. The lines are all crooked. It's basically stick figure level for a 3-year-old. This scene, in the eyes of the 3 workers in the yard, is nothing short of Pangu creating the world. Absolutely divine. A red glow flashes at the corners of their eyes. That's not ink. That's a senior reshaping the laws with the origin of the Tao. The Wuji Emperor even kneels on the spot. His eyes roll back, unable to look directly. He is drawing a new world out of thin air. We're not even worthy to take a look. You can't hear their crazy inner imaginations at all. You blow on the ink spots. With a thought, a blue panel appears. Come on, 30,000 years of fermentation should make it livable now, right? You toss the sketch into the cellar like it's just some random junk. Casually selected a primordial creation origin space. But the moment you pressed the confirm button, all realms were instantly stunned. In the outer devil realm, the demon ancestor, whose body is bigger than 100,000 suns, suddenly awoke. He was so scared even his scales were twitching. He sensed a creator-level power, about to force a concept blueprint, right into the source of time and space. Stop them. Otherwise, all realms through all ages will be completely rewritten. The demon ancestor roars madly, leading an army of sky demons that blotted out the sun straight for Nanping village. For a moment, black energy billows over Nanping village. Countless sky demons oppress the world. They are utterly despairing. The entire sky demon race has come out in force. The senior's majesty. But you just scratch your ear. Look at the dark sky and complain, why is it thundering again? This crappy weather is so annoying. Just as you're complaining, the system voice rings out. 30,000 years of fermentation reset to 0. The manifestation is gigantic.
Buzz.
A pure white light, so intense the universe finds it unfamiliar, erupts with Nanping village as the center. Explodes with a boom. That day, the ferocious aura of the demon ancestor didn't even last 0.1 seconds. Before being silently swallowed by the light. When the light finally fades, you rub your eyes, look at what's before you, and your expression freezes. The former thatched cottage has become a grand bronze hall, covered in complex patterns. The backyard wood has turned into 9 colored glass pillars, shining obnoxiously. Even the stone path is covered in smoky purple mud. System, what's wrong with your sense of aesthetics? You angrily curse out loud. What the heck kind of mess is this decor? At least the place is a bit spacious. Guess I'll just make do. But at this moment, the Wuji Emperor is already pressing his old face tightly to the purple mud, crying his heart out. Heavens above. That's the primordial origin Dao Palace. That's the Hongmeng 9-turn breath soil. Just eating a bit puts you right on the path of righteousness. All right, enough wailing. You point to the black powder falling from the sky and tell them to hurry up and sweep up the black ash. Those so-called snowflakes are actually the sky demon army, who couldn't even make a sound, before being directly crushed to bits by the divine domain's force. High-grade spiritual ash waste, automatically being spread out in the vegetable garden as fertilizer. Yet, at that moment, the entire Juzhou continent starts to violently shake. The sky shatters like glass. The Wuji Emperor breaks out in cold sweat. It's because the level of this house is way too high. This lower realm absolutely can't withstand the heavenly Tao. The heavenly Tao is about to be crushed. As expected, to keep it secret, the original aloof will of the heavenly Tao instantly transforms into the most humble existence. No tribulation, no trial. The heavenly Tao builds an ascension channel, right under your nose. A 10,000-foot wide 9-colored golden light path, spiraling wildly at your feet. A wailing plea from the heavenly Tao echoes in the void. Ancestor, please ascend now. The upper realm is big enough to hold you. If you stay even half a stick of incense longer, my world will be crushed by your house. Looking at the void, where the heavenly Tao's shadow is kowtowing to you like crazy, you frown in disgust. You kick away the welcoming auspicious cloud that comes close, point at the plum tree and shout, ascend for what? Are you trying to rush me to my death? Can't you see? I just salted a dozen wild boar sausages yesterday. They're still hanging on the tree, not even dry yet. You roll your eyes dramatically. If I move now, who will pay for the spoiled meat? Get out of here and wait. I'll consider it after the meat's dry. The entire place falls silent. Zhu Wishun and his group souls are so shocked they almost ascend right there with the heavenly Tao. Was so scared he shuddered. That massive celestial phantom didn't even say a word. It just dropped to its knees in front of the cured pork and desperately started blowing air at that row of bacon, drying them off that crisp early morning. The first ray of sunlight barely pierced through Nanping Village's mist. You had 2 huge dark circles under your eyes. Looking completely defeated, you kicked open the drafty wooden door of the straw hut. So noisy, can you let people sleep or not? The yard was just way too loud. That bony old man named Zhu Wishun was swinging a rusty hatchet, chopping firewood with grunts. The wind cut the air, making it whistle sharply. Under the eaves, the stunning beauty named Lin Qingsu was bending over with her butt in the air, gritting her teeth as she scrubbed the table with a filthy rag. The sound was as bad as nails on a chalkboard. But the most outrageous part was, by the millstone, the new guy, Emperor Wuji, actually put on a harness, hauling the millstone like an old ox, completely crazed, panting roughly as he walked in circles. Drool kept dripping at the corner of his mouth. This bunch of homeless old fools are taking hard work a little too far. You scratched your messy hair, looking utterly disgusted. Originally, you came here to enjoy slow-paced country retirement, but instead, the yard turned into some non-stop labor camp. You wandered the yard with your hands behind your back, looking at the collapsed roof and the hole in the corner. You stroked your chin. This dump of a house really needs remodeling. But hiring a mason is expensive and a huge hassle. Suddenly, you had a flash of inspiration. Since even wash water and broken brooms can be tossed in the time cellar to ferment, turning junk into treasure, what if you drew a renovation blueprint of Nanping Village, threw it in the cellar, and let it ferment for tens of thousands of years? Wouldn't it come out as a luxurious deluxe courtyard? No time like the present. You immediately headed inside, dug up a pilled, ragged scroll of rice paper and a nearly bald brush, started doodling brazenly on the table. Straw hut, swap it for a big brick house. Raise the courtyard walls. Widen the yard. The brushwork was extremely
careless.
Looked like a 3-year-old drew stick figures with their feet. But who would have thought these few lousy lines, from just outside the yard, where the snooping Zhu Wishun, Lin Qingsu, and Emperor Wuji hid, scared them stiff at first glance. Everyone in the yard took a sharp collective breath. Oh my God, what did I just see? Zhu Wishun's knees buckled. Tears were streaming from his eyes. Those weren't ink marks. That's the senior using the 3,000 Great Tao to reshape the laws of reality. Lin Qingsu clutched her madly pounding heart, shaking all over. He's drawing a new world. The senior must think the universe is obsolete and is going to cut all karma itself. Emperor Wuji, who was hauling the millstone, bugged his eyes out wide. His soul felt as if it was ground into dust 10,000 times. This knowledge is the creator's jurisdiction. Just looking at it is enough to destroy your soul. Of course you didn't notice. What kind of insane fantasies these 3 part-timers were cooking up in their heads. You happily put down the brush, blew on the wet ink. Although the drawing was a little abstract, the idea was there. Then, you casually called up the deep blue time cellar panel and tossed the blueprint in like junk paper, cranked the time dial, set it to 30,000 years of primordial fermentation. 30,000 years that should make it livable, right? Better not give me some shoddy tofu drag building. You muttered as you hit confirm. You'd never expect. At that very second, you casually tapped OK. The whole universe was shocked to its core. Billions of light years away, in the outer demon realm where not even immortal emperors dare enter, A heaven demon patriarch that had slept for an epoch, whose body was as big as 100,000 suns, suddenly opened his blood-red eyes wide. A soul-crushing howl echoed that could shatter stars. This demon, who even gold immortals couldn't survive as a phantom, was now trembling like a mouse before a cat. His whole body spasmed in terror. In his senses, some force above all laws was cramming a conceptual blueprint into the time stream. Once the fermentation finished, the entire demon realm would be wiped clean like dust with a rag. Direct, instant physical purification. Stop him. Do whatever it takes to interrupt the fermentation. The demon patriarch burned his origin force, commanded an army of demons that blotted out the world, tearing through dimensions like a black tide, going completely mad, charging straight toward your Nanping village. At the same time, the little Nanping village courtyard was instantly consumed by darkness. The demon horde was pressing in. It was the outer demons that once devoured the heavenly court. Emperor Wuji's scalp tingled, cried out in terror. Zhu Eishen and Lin Qingsu were crushed by the apocalyptic pressure against the ground. Unable to move a muscle, their eyes filled with despair. The demon army poured out in full force, intent on severing the formation spell. Senior. With awe, countless black cracks exploded across the sky. The demon patriarch's terrifying phantom figure brought endless dark clouds, ignoring all else, reaching directly for the deep blue light screen before you, just as he was barely half an inch away. Right then, you just lazily looked up, glanced at the pitch-black sky, irritably dug your ear. Why is it thundering again? Looks like it's about to rain. This crappy sky is so annoying. No sooner did you finish complaining than a crisp female system voice chimed. Ding! 30,000 years of fermentation complete. Materialization begins. In an instant, from the light screen, erupted an explosive, blinding white light, pure to the extreme. There was no sound at all. It made no sense whatsoever. The terrifying realm's repulsion froze like a tsunami. The demon patriarch's shadow couldn't even try blocking it in time, and vanished silently in the white light. Moments later, the light faded. The entire world went dead silent. You just rubbed your dazzled eyes, looking at the completely transformed house. The corners of your mouth twitched uncontrollably. The straw hut was really gone. It was replaced by a weird building that looked like rusty scrap metal, covered head to toe in bizarre scribbled patterns. Absolutely looked like an old, rusted shack. But the courtyard fence became pillars of 9-colored glass. Honestly, it looked like a nouveau riche's firewood stash. Strangest of all was the road, now completely covered with oozing purple smoky mud. System, is something wrong with your aesthetic sense? You snapped grouchily. What's with all this gaudy nonsense? At least the place turned out kind of spacious. Guess I'll just live with it. But you could never have guessed. The 3 people behind you, who just got their eyesight back after being blinded, looked about ready to pop their eyeballs out. This is the mythical Origin Dao Palace of Creation. Emperor Wuji buried his face in the purple mud and started calling out like mad. That's the boundary pillar made from dragon bone chains. We're kneeling in front of something. A breath of primordial soil could make us rich. The #1 divine realm of eternity. This is the most terrifying divine domain since all of heaven began. Zhu Wushan shook uncontrollably. Suddenly, Lin Qingsu snapped back to her senses and started looking around in terror. Wait, what happened to those sky-darkening demons earlier? Yeah, what about that huge mass of demons? Did you guys notice those black particles drifting in the sky? You pointed to the edge of the vegetable field. Black dust was fluttering down everywhere. It just happened to land in the soil as fertilizer. So that's how it is. The infinite emperor gulped. Cold sweat poured down his face. He could see everything clearly. That wasn't black snowflakes at all. That was actually billions of heavenly demon troops. They had just been obliterated by the white light and instantly turned into the top-tier compound fertilizer's spirit ash. These were the outer realm demons that swept across the heavens, all to stop you from renovating your house, but ended up auto-fertilizing your cabbage patch instead. The 3 filled with awe all spun around together. Bang, bang, bang. They started fiercely kowtowing to your back. All right. What are you bowing your heads for? Hurry up and sweep up that black dust. You waved your hands speechlessly. Right at that moment, crack. A terrifying rumbling burst came from underground. The heavens of the 9 provinces cracked like shattered glass. They broke open with tens of thousands of rifts. Spiritual energy poured out madly. The very Tao of heaven was on the verge of collapse. Zhu Wushen gasped in shock. The infinite emperor's face was filled with despair, pointing at the house you just built. Because the courtyard wall isn't high enough. The lower realm's heavenly Tao can't withstand the weight of this eternal divine domain. Heaven's Tao will be steadily suppressed, no doubt. Above the dome, a vast and odd will extend it out. It's the 9 provinces' heavenly Tao. It doesn't care about any laws at all. It just adopted a fawning posture and forcibly drew up the earth's veins essence, right above your courtyard. It laid out an ascension path surrounded by rainbow clouds. A welcoming divine avenue. The golden light almost wanted to drill directly into your shoes. A pleading voice rang out, answering me with grief in the minds of every living being. Ancestor, please, I beg you. Hurry and ascend, please. The upper realm is spacious. If you stay here for even half a stick of incense longer, my world will literally be crushed by your house. I'll kowtow to you. Please, just go. Facing the golden ascension light almost touching your nose. And up in midair, the vision of a massive giant desperately kowtowing. You frowned deeply. In fact, you were extremely annoyed. So you kicked the welcoming clouds at your feet away. Go where? Why go? Stop rushing me already. And with growing impatience, you pointed at a row of things hanging from the pear tree in the courtyard and scolded loudly. Those dozen wild boar sausages I just cured yesterday aren't even dry yet. If I move now and the meat's ruined, are you paying for it? Get out of my way and wait over there. Once the sausages are dried, then I'll consider whether to leave or not. But shockingly, after hearing your complaints, that once overbearing heavenly Tao apparition not only didn't get mad, but instead, with a thud, obediently knelt in front of the pear tree, and with supreme heavenly intention, focused entirely on that row of sausages, doing its best to fan and dry them. At that moment, above Lamping Village, the giant heavenly Tao apparition, thousands of feet high, was sweating buckets, waving its huge hand that could sweep the clouds, and frantically fanning those sausages hanging from your tree, trying desperately to fan the sausages dry. It feared too much force would ruin the meat, but too little would delay your departure. So the Tao's avatar acted extremely carefully, just like a tireless fan. Meanwhile, in the courtyard, Zhu Wushen, Lin Qingsu, and the infinite emperor had completely turned into 3 stone statues. What a waste of heaven's gifts! The infinite emperor, grinding the mill, was already crying old man tears, using the last heavenly Tao essence of the 9 provinces just to dry some sausages. These sausages, even heaven's grandmaster could ascend on the spot after eating one. If they ate one, they'd ascend right then and there. But you never even considered that. You grabbed a small stool and sat at the door, holding a piece. You had just pulled out a half-translucent sweet potato strip from the cellar, crunching on it with a crispy bite. Even though you chewed carelessly, the air itself seemed to thunder, because that thing is actually the purest essence of the earth, refined for 30,000 years. Even exposing a little bit of it would be enough to revive a dried-up starfield. The sweet potato strip was a bit tough from fermentation. Hard to chew, so you smacked your lips, looking up. At the sausages the Tao had just about finished drying. You finally felt satisfied, brushed the crumbs from your hands, stood up, and waved towards the sky. All right, that's enough. Don't wipe them anymore. It's starting to look annoying. The moment you finished speaking, that commanding apparition of the Tao, relieved, turned into a sky full of golden light, bowed to you again and again on its way out, and instantly disappeared without a trace, afraid that if it stayed a second longer, it would be stuck cleaning the courtyard. Since you're leaving, might as well take it all with you. You glance all around at the newly finished bronze shrine. A big courtyard and these 3 blockhead laborers inside. They're perfect for chopping firewood and grinding the mill. Bringing them saves me trouble too. System, cut the nonsense. Pack the entire Namping village along with these people for me.
Take all of it.
With a grand wave of your hand, You gave the order instantly. Immediately there was a loud crash. No one could have expected that this average patch of dirt in Namping village would suddenly erupt with era-suppressing might. The glorious divine courtyard soared up from the ground. No elaborate ceremony, just smashed right through the boundary barrier. With rolling thunder, it tore into the rift of the myriad realms void. At that moment, outside the barrier of the 9 provinces, those myriad realm god kings who'd hidden for countless eras, the supreme demon lord, had long formed tight battle lines, clutching supreme artifacts that could shake entire galaxies, ready to face the High Master who had wiped out the heavenly demons. Determined to cross the boundary by force, one supreme, glowing all over, broke into a cold sweat. Everyone, at all costs, we must not let him seize the void core. Activate the Grand Myriad Realms Array immediately. At this crucial moment, just as all the Supremes prepared to go all out, the Void's barrier opened. To everyone's surprise, it wasn't breached by any legendary artifact, but by a farmhouse courtyard, sausages and all, that forced its way right on through. Crunch, crunch. Just as the gods were so stunned their hearts nearly stopped, that bronze courtyard slowly floated through the void storm that could shred ancient emperors. So calmly it was lazier than a stroll in the park, even slower than a casual walk. At the gate, you were lounging on a rattan chair, holding the rest of the sweet potato strip, chewing as you watched outside. At the dazzling army of gods and demons, the crisp snap of your biting off the sweet potato strip echoed eerily through the entire void. In that instant, 10,000 supreme beings all felt their own rules and laws forcibly suppressed. Because, as you casually chewed on your, that's clearly the cosmic origin capable of reshuffling all realms. Eternal Golden Coast. He just eats the cosmic origin like it's dessert. Look at that, Lemo. That's the immortal realm's supreme god emperor, missing for 100,000 years. Now he's acting as a spirit beast, Lemo. And that person wiping the table, that's the unrivaled expert Lin Qingsu. She's serving as a maid. The gods are completely stunned. That kind of dimensional crushing power has left them without even the courage to raise a hand. It's like a group of brick-carrying ants trying to besiege someone who plays with jade plates for fun. The void instantly fell silent. Millions of supreme beings didn't even dare to breathe. All they could do was watch as you charged ahead, breaking through the encirclement, drifting toward the eternal grand order at the center of all realms. And right at this moment, you yawned. You thought the divine lights outside were just too blinding. They looked just like a noisy group of idlers. Why shine so much light in broad daylight? No manners at all. You frowned in annoyance, then turned to Lin Qingsu and instructed Qingsu. Those guys outside are too loud. It's ruining my afternoon nap. Go to the basement and bring me 2 bricks of the 9 Heavens Chaos red brick that's been fermenting for 30,000 years. Bring out 2 pieces. If anyone dares to shine and make noise again, just throw a brick at them to teach them a lesson. When she heard this, Lin Qingsu trembled with excitement. I'll follow your orders, senior. I'll go get the bricks to teach these fools a lesson right now. Little did they expect, when the gods and demons in the void heard about the 30,000-year fermented brick, they all shivered in fear. With a crash, they put all their divine artifacts on the ground, wishing they could immediately snuff out all their light. Time passed. Half a year later, this renovated Namping village courtyard had already firmly established itself at the very pinnacle of all realms, realm of the eternal void. But this originally sacred and untouchable place now had a row of vegetable racks for airing pickled greens. You're already very happy with your new home. Not only is the lighting great, the neighbors are all very polite. All those god kings and demon ancestors have retreated 3,000 miles away, respectfully building a place for pilgrimage. One morning, Supreme Emperor cloaked in a tattered cotton jacket walked to the door. Face darkened, lowering his voice and shouting, "Everyone quiet down. The master is in a good mood today, and just got some divine water for washing pots. The rule is, each universe can only send 3 god kings into the ditch to hunt for treasure. Anyone who tries to cut in line or a snatch, I'll use the tofu grinding rod to smash his divine core." As soon as he finished speaking, the group of all-powerful god kings outside fought to get into the ditch to represent their universe. and immediately crowded and pushed to get ahead. But they all suppressed their auras as much as they could, afraid to disturb you. Meanwhile, in the little courtyard, sunlight showered the stone path. You were squatting at the edge of the vegetable patch, happily watching the fermenting pickled greens in the old jar. Qingsu, is that 10,000-year-old spirit root porridge cooled yet? Master, it's just right. Perfectly balanced yin and yang. Lin Qingsu walked over with a large blue and white porcelain bowl, filled with rich porridge made from Dao spirit roots. Grinning, you sat down at the stone table, picked up a piece aged for 10,000 years. The ultimate origin old jar's pickled green that had gone through endless transformation, and put it in your mouth. Crunch, a sour crispness hits your soul. It turns into an amazing current of origin that warms you from within. You exhale a breath of brilliant, aurora-like turbid air, then slump happily into the stone chair. Even though now, with just a flick of your finger, you could reshape the universe, you're just too lazy to bother. You watch Zhu Wuxian chop wood with great effort, while Supreme Emperor sneaks a sip of broth from the bottom of the bowl. Master, you're already the supreme being of all realms. Lin Qingsu is massaging your shoulders. Do you really not want to step outside and guide the worlds? You chuckled, then picked up another piece of pickled greens. Managing all realms. That's just exhausting. Besides, no matter how much respect those guys show out there, at the so-called pinnacle they speak of, it's nothing compared to the satisfaction I get from eating the pickled greens I make myself.